Megan, is it okay if I share a personal impossible possible?
Of course, we would love to hear it.
Okay, so in 1985, which was a long time ago, I realized that I was gay. I knew that I needed to talk to my parents about it, to come out to them, because I come from a wonderful, close family. And I knew it was going to be bad, that even though they're wonderful people, this is a very long time ago. And I went home to St. Louis, where I grew up, and I sat down with my folks, and it took me a while to get it out. And even though I had been practicing telling them this for months, and I shared with them that I am gay. And I remember my father, who I admire so much, became tearful, and he said, "You'll never have a spouse, you'll never have children, you'll never have a career." And he said those things not to be hurtful. He said those things because those were his fears vocalized. And that was a reality, really, for what he knew as a man from the Midwest in the mid-'80s. But that act of bravery on my part and the part of so many people who come out really forged a life plan for me. I was only 24 or 5 years old. I didn't have a life plan, but suddenly I knew I needed these things: the spouse, the child, the career. And it felt pretty impossible back then. This was before Ellen DeGeneres, before lipstick lesbians, before any of these things. But I set about it, started to work, date, ultimately adopted my daughter, who's now 27, and have been with my wife for 33 years. And what's really the surprising, impossible part wasn't so much my own personal story, but the story of this civil rights movement in our country that happened pretty quickly. Unlike some of the other challenges this country has faced, the gay civil rights movement happened pretty quickly. And I think the impossible became possible. I certainly felt that way when I went down to City Hall about a decade ago and got married, something I never thought I would do. So forgive me a long story, but it's something I feel really passionately about.
Sally, I love that you brought that up. And I was reading about your time at Estee Lauder, the interview where they were asked, "What does your husband do?" And you actually, in that moment, can you tell us, professionally coming out, that's such a bold choice in that moment?
Of course. I'll never forget that moment. I mean, I'm in a last stage interview for a job I really want. This is going to the Estee Lauder companies to be the head of communications. I mean, who wouldn't want that great job? And I'd had many, many interviews, but I had to have one more interview with Ronald Lauder. And I went to his beautiful, elegant office, in the General Motors building, and we're sitting in this setting, and we're just getting started. And he looks at me and says, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. What does your husband do?" And, I guess I'm wearing a small gold band. He must have seen that. And I knew his intentions were good. He was trying to warm it up. And before I can even open my mouth, his assistant dashes into the room and says that the Prime Minister from Israel is on the phone for Ronald. So I say, "Well, would you like me to step out so you can speak in private?" He says, No, you stay comfortable. I'll take it in the conference room." And he leaves. And, I start to sweat. I'm very nervous. I assumed that over time I would be forthcoming about my sexuality, but it wasn't exactly the first sentence I wanted to have in a job interview. And, 3 minutes pass, 5 minutes, 8 minutes. I'm thinking, felt like forever. Ronald comes back in and he sits down, and I realized, I think he probably forgot he even asked me that question. I could have just skimmed past it, but I knew I couldn't. And that if I was going to take this step in my life, if this is a job I really wanted that was going to be forward leading and front facing for a company like this that I really needed to be completely candid. So I said, thank you so much for asking about my family. I'm so fortunate to have a wonderful partner, and she has been incredibly supportive of me and my career. And together, we have a 1-year-old baby girl that we love so much. So thank you for asking about my family. And I knew I wanted to try to say it in a way that was warm, non-confrontational, but clear. And Ronald paused and he looked at me, and I thought, well, let me gather up my things and I can go home now. And he offered me the job on the spot. And he said, you'll be a wonderful spokesperson for our company. And then we just chatted, but I never forgot it because, it's just the risk is always worth taking. I mean, I know you do that, and you've done that in your career. You don't want to stay still. You want to move forward, and taking risks is where you make the leaps and gains, personally and professionally.
We want to thank you, Sally, for sharing your story. We always like to establish that this is an inclusive space. So we respect all of our viewers and listeners. We respect their backgrounds. They're welcome here. We love them. And it's so meaningful for them to see someone of your stature and accomplishment share so openly. And I think that will be very, very important for people to hear. So we appreciate you.